Hello, this is Joe, and I'm coming to you from the North Shore of Oahu in Hawaii.
And I'm SteveO. I'm coming to you from my home in Tampa. This is Veterans Voices with Joe and SteveO.
Veterans Voices with Joe and SteveO is a podcast focusing on issues important to veterans like us. SteveO and I are both disabled veterans, and we want to talk to you about what it was like to serve in the military, what our life has been like since we transitioned from the military to the civilian world, and some of the issues and challenges that we've seen with the VA and with other government agencies since we have left the military.
Yeah, and we're also going to be doing a lot of interviews with people that you might think are interesting. We certainly do. Some people you'll recognize, some people you won't. Hopefully, it'll be some of you who are going to be on here. So we want to really have a lot of fun with it. We want to connect with you, and we want to talk about things that are important, that we think that are important to you, but what you really want to hear.
So speaking of different ways to connect, we have this podcast up on the different podcast hosting sites. We have a YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find us on our different social media sites. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, just basically every social media site that you can think of, we will be on there.
Yeah, so we want you to we've given you plenty of opportunities so that you can find us. We want you to go on there, take a look, give it a listen. This is an evolution, and it involves you. So jump on board, tell us what you think, tell us how we can make it better, and let's just have fun with it.
So this is Veterans Voices with Joe and SteveO.
See you there. So I'm SteveO. So I got Joe over here. I'm actually split screened here. I'm in Seminole, Florida, which is down by St. Petersburg, Tampa area. Joe, where are you at?
I am on the North Shore of Oahu in Hawaii. And SteveO and I are both in quarantine. So we are both in self-quarantine. Neither one of us are sick. I'm not sick. Are you sick?
No, I'm not sick at all.
I feel better than I have in weeks. Back from travel and now back in Hawaii at the house and waiting for this COVID-19 pandemic social distancing quarantine to pass or be eased, or for us to settle into whatever the new normal is going to be on the back end of this. So that's what I'm doing today. SteveO, what are you doing today?
So I'm not doing anything today, but we're not locked down the way that most places are. Our governor has, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to bars, but like everywhere, I'm sure you can order liquor to be delivered to your house, or you can still go to the liquor store. You go to any stores, you just kind of have to maintain your distance. You can play golf, you can play tennis, but you can't get near anybody. So that's actually perfect, because what are the chances of me and you playing golf and hitting our ball in the same place? Pretty unlikely. So actually what I've been doing is I've been walking. So I've been pushing my own little push cart, because then, I don't even have to deal with the idea of, sanitizing a golf cart.
Yeah, that's a good call. It's a good call. So so SteveO and I came up with an idea for a veterans podcast, because we feel like it's challenging for vets to navigate the system that is the VA. It's a large bureaucratic system of essentially socialized medicine that is run by the government. And anybody who's been in the government or worked with the government or existed on the planet knows how challenging dealing with the government can be. So we are hoping to provide people with some resources that will allow them to better navigate the VA system. And we are also hoping to provide some entertainment while you are learning some, ways to navigate the VA system. So
yeah, well, and of course, because we learn from other people's experiences. So, when Joe and I are talking about, some situation we've been in, especially when we were like in the military, or, when we're sharing maybe a sea story or two, other people will be able to connect with that, because we all pretty much, all of us who have been in the military all pretty much have some similar experiences. I think it really depends on where you're at, but we've all heard the stories. Some of us just lived them. So.
Yeah, I mean the thing that we are all bound by in any military service is our ability to tolerate boredom and isolation. Like we all, like no matter what branch of service you were in, you got to learn that
one. Right. So, so I think that's and so that was really the seminal moment. It was when I had already retired from the government, and then you were going into retirement from the Navy. And I remember when you called me, you said, "Hey, SteveO, what, how do I navigate the VA?" But fortunately, you had kind of a built-in transition that I didn't have when I was getting out 30 years ago. But the end result is the same. I think it was not as painful for you.
So Steve, how about you give us your introduction? Like, tell us about your time in service when you were in the Civil War and up to leaving the military service, and how that veteran experience has been for you.
So I went in the Air Force right after high school, and like a lot of guys, enlisted guys anyway. There weren't a lot of choices. It's probably like a lot of kids today, but back then it was a little bit more. In the 70s, it was a little bit more uncertain. So I saw an opportunity. The Air Force was taking pretty much anybody, and I went in. And then I was a cold warrior because we didn't have a war. Because it was right after Vietnam. Nobody really had the stomach for that. But we had the Soviet Union, so we had an enemy built in to our country's psyche. And I went in. I was a communications guy. I worked behind a teletype or in SCIFs in SCI facilities, and I honestly didn't work a lot. I mean, in the beginning years I did, but the Air Force was pretty much a club. So as long as you had the social network down, you were going to excel. Unlike today, it's all probably about accomplishments. Then if you went to happy hour every Friday, and the E1s and E2s hung out with the E5s to the E9s, they taught you how to kind of be a man, how to navigate the Air Force. You learned how your shift supervisor taught you how to play pinochle, because that was important in the Air Force. And we drank a lot. We partied a lot. I honestly don't remember a whole lot of work experiences. Probably like when you were on a ship, But
when I did that, and we didn't party or drink at all. So probably very similar.
Well, you had to wait for like a port call, and then the port call. You got to unload everything in a couple of days.
We would pull into port, and we would do 15 days worth of drinking in 2 days, and then try to drive the ship out of some place after we had done that. And whoever was like the most sober got to drive out.
Right, exactly. So it's really not much different than when you got out, basically.
Exactly.
So anyway, just wrap that up. I did 10 years active duty, got out, went to Hawaii, went civil service, did that for about 23 years. And then, I met Joe because, Joe hired me to go and run his safety program in the Far East when he was with Military Sea Lift. And then I retired from there.
Right. Joe. Okay. So I joined the Navy I joined the Navy because I couldn't figure out a way to pay for college. So I was going to Villanova University. I was out of money. I had pretty good grades, so I applied for an ROTC scholarship. I got an ROTC scholarship, and 5 arduous years of college later, I was graduating and getting commissioned as a ensign in the Navy. So that was 97. So went to Navy dive school, went out and served on a minesweeper, and thought I would do basically my 5 years in the Navy and get out. And then the second most significant event of my lifetime occurred, which was September 11th. And I say second most significant because I think what we're going through right now is the most significant event of our lifetimes. So September 11th happened in 2001, and I stayed in the Navy, and then that turned into 22 years in the Navy and retiring as a commander. I had known Steve when we served together in Europe, and we became friends there. And then when I was out in Guam and in the Far East, I had the opportunity to hire a civilian safety manager for the command I was running. So I actually hired Steve and brought him out to work in Guam. And then I left Guam. Steve stayed and eventually left Guam, and then we both ended up retired. So I retired from the Navy in July of 2018, and learned how to then navigate the VA system in that process. So it was interesting. It was educational, and I feel like there's some lessons that can be shared in that experience. Was that enough of an intro?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, yeah, I think that that pretty much, you know, describes, you know, kind of how we got here, like in a nutshell. But what we hope is that through these podcasts that you're going to get to know us a lot more. So you'll get those, you know, those tidbits of knowledge and of wisdom, if you can call it that. And but really, the bottom line is we all learn from the guys before us. So all the experiences that I have are really from, or the way I navigate experiences, you know, in my elderly years is from all those guys that were before me that I, you know, I was hanging out with, drinking with, that were teaching me how to navigate the military. And it's, you know, I don't like have a, you know, the Air Force chevrons on my car like a lot of guys do, but you know, everybody knows who's, you know, veterans know who a veteran is, right? I mean, for the most part, you know, it kind of opens the door to a conversation.
So
Like
I think I think there's different kind of veterans, right? There's guys who they wear it on their sleeve and they are very proud of what they did, and they have, you know, the Marine Corps sticker next to the POWMIA flag on the back of their truck, and they are, you know, with their veteran license plate, and they're very proud of the service that they put into the country, and that's great. And then there's guys who, you know, you might meet them a couple occasions and finally get out of them like, oh, I served in the military, and they don't want to share that for whatever reason it is. But we can all spot our own. We can all figure out who was and who is not in the military. It's seldom that you'll have a conversation with someone and you'll be, you know, 5 minutes or 20 minutes into the conversation and be like, hey, like, you were in the military, weren't you? And they'll, like, once you get that feeling, you know, like, oh yeah, this guy or gal served and did whatever. And then, you know, whether we were in whatever branch of the service we were in, there's that common bond that unites us all.
right, yeah, it is that way, and particularly in Hawaii, like you can't, it's impossible to bump into somebody that isn't connected to the military in some way, because it's such a small place, and most Hawaiis, most people from outside of Hawaii that live in Hawaii now are there because the military brought them there. So, you know, it's not that different here really, because, you know, there's a big Air Force base where I live, or in the area, and there's so many retirees. We have a huge VA here. You know, it's impossible to bump into people. It's almost too much. It's almost like where you want to go. Remember when you go overseas and people would say, hey, are you gonna, you know, live on the base? And you go, I don't want to be anywhere near that base because I got to see those people every day, and it's not just that it's not that you don't respect, the other people in your plight. It's just you don't want to have to be constantly reminded. So everybody would be like, I'm living off base. At least that's what I did. I'm sure you did the same thing. So you want some separation. But where I live, it's veterans everywhere, which is cool. And I take advantage of all the veteran opportunities. One of the reasons I retired in this area is because they have so much to offer veterans. Like, in Hawaii, there's no, they don't tax your retirement income, right?
They do not.
Right, and in Florida they don't tax anybody's income in Florida. But then if you're whatever your disability rating is in Florida, that portion of your property tax is exempt. And I think it's the same thing in Hawaii too, isn't it? Is yours is exempt?
I have gone back to the state of Hawaii and sent in my disabled veteran letter to the Hawaii office. I did that about a month ago, and I have not received a response from the state of Hawaii yet. So it'll be interesting to see what they come back with for how much of the property tax they remove here in Hawaii. So in Hawaii, they will not take away all of your property tax. The minimum property tax that you will pay in Hawaii, which is a deal, is I think it's $300 per year is the absolute lowest, and that is to cover their administrative fees. So if you're paying $300 a year in property tax, that's great. So there's some different rules about how they can apply that based on what zone you're in, and if you use part of your property for a home office or that kind of thing, because those parts of it are not deductible. So we will see what the government comes back with and tells me what I am and am not allowed to.
Yeah, but that's even if it's that $300, that's a substantial savings. I mean, compared to people who aren't veterans or who don't have, and I think we got to clarify too that because people who are watching this, who are trying to navigate the whole VA, maybe it's guys who have been out for 40 years and have never filed a claim with the VA, or it's guys who are getting out tomorrow, or even veterans who are disabled who have a disability rating. They may not be taking advantage of those benefits because they may not know about them. Here in Florida, the percentage, whatever your percentage is, that percentage of your tax is exempt. So for me, I don't pay any property tax. And then if I kick the bucket tomorrow, then that benefit goes to my wife. So it just goes with it goes with the house. So she doesn't all of a sudden go, oh, now you've got to pay $5,000 a year or whatever it is. But that's a huge benefit. So when people are thinking about where they're going to retire, I think that's really an important lesson. It's like, do your research, look at the states that not everybody wants to live in Florida, or Hawaii. I mean, I can't imagine why you would want to go where the weather is good, but that's important to research that. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. So there's so many different places where there's different benefits based on the state you're in or based on the country you're in that you're eligible for as a veteran. So we are happy to entertain any questions if people have them. You can email us. You can reach out to us on social media because our platform is Veterans Voices with Joe and SteveO. So you'll be able to find us on Facebook and Instagram and on the internet. And if you have a question or you have a topic that you would like to discuss, we would love to have that discussion. Our vision here is that we have veterans on with us that we interview and we hear their story, and then whatever topic comes out of that story, we produce that into the podcast, and that's what we talk about, or we just sit around and we tell funny stories.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're funny. Hopefully we're entertaining to you. Our
Yeah,
goal.
I mean, this first one is we need to get information out. We need to let you know who we are, but there's lots and lots of opportunity to share experiences, and really the people that we invite on, who will all have some connection to the military or to a veteran or whatever, but we hope to pull their tales out too, because everybody's got a kind of an interesting story, and most people, my experience is that it's usually the funny stuff that people want to share, right? Like we all have our tragic, our tragic side, but the important thing is, how you deal with life. So we want to be able to like kind of draw that out again, because we all learn from each other. Not everybody wants to share, but everybody wants to hear somebody else kind of laugh, and maybe I get to make a fool out of myself every now and again, which is probably going to happen pretty often.
Actually, the goal of this podcast is to watch SteveO make a fool out of himself at least once per 30-minute podcast, right? So if you're not laughing at SteveO, we're doing something wrong, and we want to correct that.
Right, and so your feedback is important to be able to tell us what that is, right? Because I'm guessing that you're making me kind of the de facto sidekick. Is that what we're doing here?
No,
I'm not sure I like that role.
I wouldn't do that to you. We're sharing this equally. So one of the goals of this podcast is obviously to help vets figure out how to navigate the system, and their disability, and get a disability rating that results in a monetary payment from the government, so that they can receive the services that they need to receive, and they have all of their different everybody's got a host of things wrong with them once they're coming out of the Navy or any of the branches of service, right? So we all suffer these different traumas. Everybody gets injured. Everybody's gonna get hurt in training or hurt in combat, or just beat up over the years by the different things that they're exposed to. So SteveO and I want to help people navigate that system and get higher disability ratings, or get even a disability rating from the government. So that's one of the things we want to focus on. SteveO, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I think that's I think that also to kind of highlight that there's no stigma. There shouldn't be any stigma with people becoming or asking for disability rating. I mean, I hear people over the years, when I worked for the Marine Corps, I hear from the Marines a lot, and I'd be like, are you, and maybe not today, maybe it's a little bit different today as guys transition out, because the military actually does a transition and the VA comes in and talks to them and talks about their benefits. But in my day, they didn't do that. So I met a lot of Marines working for the Marines that would be like, yeah, I'm not filing for disability. I don't even go to the hospital. I don't even go to the doctor. And I tell them, well, you need to do that, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen.
So how did you accumulate your disability rating over the years? Take us through your process.
Yeah. So when I first went, I was kind of like those guys. I didn't think like anything was wrong with me, but I was starting to have some back problems, and I had stuff documented. And my dad was 100% disabled vet, and he was in the Korean War, and he drove me to the Disabled American Vets and sat me down with them and said, my son wants you to be his advocate. I didn't know what I was doing. So then they did I just kind of signed my authorization that they could act on my behalf. I got appointments from the VA. It said, go to this doctor, go to this doctor, go to this doctor. And, kind of like what you did. And then I got a rating. And I remember my first rating, they gave me 20%. And 20% I actually didn't get money, because I got out of the military under I took a payment when I got out, and like a downsizing thing. And I had to pay that back, whatever the government gave me. So I didn't see money for years and years and years. And then I was getting worse and worse over the years, right? I'm starting getting older. I'm starting to notice my problems. And then a buddy of mine who had just gotten out of the Navy and got rated at like 60% right out of the Navy without even, just from his records, which is probably similar to how you got started on that path. And he was like, Steve, you need to go. I'm tired of hearing you bitch and moan about all your aches and pains. You need to go back to the VA. And I was worried that I would lose my, like, if they look at me again, they might take that 20% away, and then I got nothing. So I wanted to just tell people, don't think that way. You know, you need to go and fight for those benefits that you deserve. And they're not going to just take it away just because you went and asked or said, hey, look at me again. And it was years later. And then I went from, they did more tests, and then I went from 20% to 90%. So I was, for years, all the time when we were in Europe, I was 90%. That was right when I got that. But again, my problems just got worse and worse as time went on. And then when I went to Hawaii, 5 years later, I went back and filed again. And because I had some other issues that were deemed service connected, but were 0%. And so I asked them to relook at those. And then they did. And then they rated me at 100% total and permanent. So people who don't understand all of this would go, what do you mean you're 100% disabled? There's nothing wrong with you. Because they look at you and they go, you know, you can walk around, you can play golf, you can do things, you can live.
I will vouch for SteveO that you may look at him and think that he's not disabled, but if you spend any time with him, like really like 15 minutes max, you'll figure out that he is in reality disabled in many, many different ways.
Right. So I should just get it anyway. They should have just given it to me when I was active duty.
They should be retroactively paying you for all of that time when you were only 20% disabled. They should give you a big check for that. They're not going to, but they should.
Yeah, they're not going to. But so I ended up being rated 100%, and then that became total and permanent. And that's an important distinction because that doesn't mean the VA could never go back and look at you and go, you know, wow, we think we made a mistake. But they could, but they're not going to, because once you're rated total and permanent, that's it. And it doesn't mean that, you know, that you're a basket case. There are guys, I mean, like your dad, who, you know, that's an interesting story. And that's really the person we don't want to be talking to.
Right. So we'll try to get my dad and his story on here. We'll save that for another day. I did hear your alarm go off there, SteveO. Do you have to go take
so we were kind of like,
you have to go take your meds?
Yeah. I gotta go and screw and screw my foot back on. No, actually, look, I should be able to make disability jokes.
Well, yeah. So now you gotta get the whole my father's missing his foot from Vietnam plug in there, right? So that's the screwing your foot back on, Joe. Yeah. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get to interview your dad and hear his story, because that's probably a pretty funny tale as well.
I can't even imagine. So are you done with yours? Because I'll give mine.
Yeah. So do yours, and then we'll do a wrap up.
So very similar story to Steve. I am actually also 100% disabled, permanent, and total. My story is different because when I was leaving the military, I asked people. Steve was one of them. Another guy named Herm Y helped me out a lot. We have an interview with him that we're going to release. And so I knew as I was getting out, like, okay, like there's things you need to do. You get your full medical record. And then Steve mentioned the Disabled American Veterans Organization. So I went, while I was still active duty, right before I retired, I took my entire service record with all of my entire medical record, and I took that to the Disabled American Veterans and sat down with them, and I gave it to them, and they said, okay, we're going to give you a power of attorney so that we can act on your behalf and submit this to the VA, sign this. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird. But I went with it, and they identified 37 different injuries or events that were inside my record that they could apply for a disability rating for. And so they put that package together. I signed the paperwork, and then I left. And then I retired and had my retirement party. And a couple months later, I was actually processed out of the military. In the meantime, the VA is like churning on the package that the DAV submitted for me. So, months go by, and we get probably I retired and officially retired on September 1st, 2018. So in January or February 2019, I got a letter back, and it said, "You are 80% disabled." And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing! Like, how did they figure that out?" Because I don't know, right? I don't know how they do the rating, and we'll talk about all that kind of stuff later. But it was a combination of all the different injuries that I had. I'm 80% disabled. I was like, okay, cool. So I tell Steve that, and he's like, that's bullshit. He's like, you're 100% disabled. I was like, really? So then SteveO and I looked at the package, and I realized that of the 37 things that were wrong with me, the VA only assessed me, and this was a series of medical appointments and everything that I went through. So of those 37 things, the VA only assessed 30 of them. And there were 7 of them that they were listed as deferred on my package. And so I went back to the DAV, and I said, what is the deal with these other 7 things? And the DAV was like, oh, they're like, that's weird. Like, we'll just resubmit them. So they send those additional 7 things off. I have to go for another 3 medical appointments to evaluate those 7 things. And then I go to the medical appointments. And then again, it goes into the ether for months and months and months, and you don't hear anything. And then boom, letter comes back, you're 100% disabled. And that's how I got disability rating. And because I had identified all those things as things that were an issue when I left the service, they went back and retroactively paid me disability all the way back to they paid it all the way back to September 1st, 2018, even though I didn't get the 100% disability rating until almost the end of 2019.
Yeah, and you know what? And something that's and that's something that we'll be talking about more because there's a lot of people out there who get lost in the ether that you were talking about, like the VA ether, which. And a lot of it is that there's things in people's background from when they were in that they may not have gotten documented, but they still have these issues that occurred while they were active duty. It makes it much more difficult. It's a much easier process today. My brother's going through the problem now. The one good thing is that we're seeing a lot of those months and months and months you waited, just like I did. They're doing it a lot quicker. Like my brother submitted his first claim for hearing loss, and they processed that and gave him his rating within 3 weeks. So it surprises me that it's that quick. And I think it's just because there's a lot more attention on the VA these days. Love them or hate them, the president has done a lot with the VA for this kind of stuff, but at least for these disability claims. So that's a good thing for everybody today. So, but anyway, here we are. We're both, broken down middle-aged men, and we want to help you navigate this whole process.
We want you to join us in the club of broken down middle-aged men. We need more. We need more guys in here and gals. Broken down right. Middle-aged women are also welcome.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, because I think that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah. So let's close it. We are Veterans Voices with Joe and SteveO. This was our 3rd version of episode 1. So we're hoping to publish this one as actually episode 1.
Yeah. And look, and what we really want is, share this with people, watch it. If you think that this is a value and it's interesting to you, then it's likely going to be for other people. So share that with people, send it out, and we want to hear from people. And as we, let us hear your stories, hear give us your questions. I'm retired. I have time to go and help, find information out for you. And, if nothing else, maybe we can, give a resource out to people, and we'll reply to you. So, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, SteveO has said it very well. Feel free to share us, ask us questions, and we hope to hear from you all soon. That's it. This is Joe signing out from the island of Oahu.
And this is SteveO signing out from Florida.
All right, everybody, take care, stay safe, avoid the COVID-19.
Yes, exactly. Okay, bye.